Welcome wherever, whenever you are. If you are watching live with us now, or if you are watching in the playback, we are so happy to have you. We're obviously talking in many different kinds of genres and areas about how we take improv and we integrate it in our lives, whether that's how we do art, like puppetry, which is what we just looked at, or when we are finding our way through challenges. So now we're going to do a session where we look at getting through a challenge, finding our way to a solution or possibilities. And we're going to do this with this idea of co-creation. Hi, Sam. Hi, Sam Furness here in Hong Kong on Llama Island. How are you?
Very well. How are you, Lauren?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah. I mean, we're in polka dots, so like you can't go wrong, really. But so Sam works for a company called Actualize here in Hong Kong. They're not just localized, but they do global work, and they do consultancy with the different kinds of approaches to learning and training. So Sam, tell me a little bit more about Actualize. What is it?
So Actualize is what's called a learning consultancy. So we work in learning and development. It should be easier for me to say that, seeing as how I say it all the time. And we do a little bit of everything, but essentially, how can we help people learn, develop? And also our tagline is, how do we help people develop and be happier? So it can be in loads of different ways. Typically, when the world is normal, we will go to a client and work with a team or a department, and they will have a specific focus on what they want to develop. Quite often we do work around sales skills, sales transformation, negotiation training, but we do, culture change. It's a real broad mixture.
Okay, beautiful. All right. So we're going to do co-creation here. Co-creation is a concept. It's an approach. It's a creative approach at that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to put my silly face away because I've been here too much already. I'm going to let you explain a little bit about co-creation and then what we all can do. And if anyone has any questions or comments, type in the chat. We're here, and tell us more, Sam.
Great. So hi, everyone. I can see that there's a few people here. So let me give you a bit of context around this session. So Lauren and I had a chat a little while ago now, and the idea was, with Lauren's background in improv, where can we align the sort of improv creative side of things with our more sort of disciplines? We bring out the same sort of skill sets and tools and models and frameworks. How can they combine? And I was thinking about it recently, and there was one activity that we do that is essentially improv, in as much as when we start it, we have no idea where it will end up. And that in our world can be a little bit scary, but it can also unlock really great insights and ideas. So what I suggested that we do in this session is have a little go at the collective build. So looking at the participants here, can anyone write in the chat that would like to? And Lauren, I'd love to hear from you as well. But the idea is, what is a challenge or an idea that you have that isn't fully formed or fully fleshed out or fully thought out that we could collectively build to try and create something new? So the process works by we have our challenge, our idea, and then we get feedback from each other to build on what we already have. And it can either be, it can be anything, any suggestion, any build, but the nice sort of improv alignment is that every sort of suggestion should be a yes and. So I will have a challenge that I'll share. And then if anybody can think of a way to build on it or further it, it's, let's say Lauren then responds. If somebody then responded after Lauren, they would have to incorporate Lauren's part of the idea as well. So there's no rejections. It's all just building yes and. Lauren, does that make sense if I explain that correctly? I'm going to assume, oh yeah, great, thanks. So keeping in line with the idea of the creative approach, the challenge that I want to explore with everyone, and if there's not that many of us, Lauren, would it be all right if you came back on camera to sort of kick off the discussion? Sorry if you were hoping to have a bit of a break, but that could be useful. My challenge is that I would like to work with improv and with Lauren more frequently. So how can I flesh out introducing improv into the corporate market? It's something Lauren and I have done, I think, once, maybe twice, but we're looking to do more of. But I'd love to hear the sort of collective wisdom in terms of how can we get a stuffy old banker to sort of say yes to improv?
I'm putting my hair back because I'm taking this seriously, and I feel like this
is the boring session on your overview.
No. Oh my God, no. I just like I'm listening to you, and I'm like, okay, I would need my hair out of my face to think about this. Yeah. So when we've talked about this in some of the other sessions, one of the challenges here, like here, Hong Kong, this is very geographic, I think, or maybe culture. And if James and Stefan are there, I'd love to hear from them as well about where you are and how it is for you. People here seem to understand investing in a company. They might have either CapEx or OpEx. And then there seems to be a gap in investing in people in certain.
Oh, I think we might have lost Lauren.
Yeah.
She's coming
back. It sounded like she was just getting to the bit that she really wanted to share as well. Oh, welcome back.
I just said the most important part. Did everyone catch that?
Nope.
I'm just kidding. Whatever I said was the most important. Point being, we feel that we can invest in our people. We want to invest in our people. And then I think oftentimes the thing that is less tangible, like this programming application, improv feels less tangible. And so we're less likely to do that. So for the challenge for me therein, it's getting people to understand the value of the training where we're not looking or holding a thing. We didn't design cups and make cups. We didn't learn a program and we see the program. Improv is people, it's cloud. So how do we get that? Does that make sense? Am I with you on that challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. And just listening to you there made me realize that we tend to find more success bringing in the more creative side or the less secure side, let's say, in terms of that intangibility, once we've already worked with a client. So once they've seen what we do and we've built a bit of trust between us, then they're more likely to say yes. So I guess I'm refining my challenge in response to you is how do you get new clients to say yes? Because it's a lot easier once that trust has been built.
Yeah. How do we get our foot in the door? How do we get a toe in the door?
Yeah, because sometimes it's just the obvious answer, isn't it? It's the solution to finding whatever issue that they have to unlock. I know for the context for other people, Lauren and I first went for lunch end of last year, and we were having a similar sort of conversation. And I said, if there's any opportunities that come up, would love to get in touch, but not sure when that would be, hadn't quite worked out what it would look like. And that very same week, a client phoned me and said, I've moved from this company to this company. I need to do I've got a training budget that I need to use up. And I just want to do something that's fun and connects people because everyone's been working from home for months.
And you told them, hey, you should all go bowling.
Well, so I kind of thought, what can I suggest? Is there something that I've got? And then obviously I was like, I went for lunch last week with the person that has the exact answer for what they need. And it worked perfectly, right? Yeah. But in terms of the challenge, the reason I was able to get that across is that I had worked with this person who was the stakeholder. He had the sign off on the budget. I'd worked with him in both of his previous companies. So he just said, whatever you want to do will be fine. You'll work out the right thing. But if that's, and that client was PayPal, and PayPal are quite a sensible business. if I didn't know that person, there's no way I think I could have got sort of a creative or an improv based program in there, because they're just, they'd be nervous to say yes to it. What's your experience been, Lauren? Because I know you've done corporate work outside of Actualize.
Yeah, can you hear my dog's toenails clicking? Hey, I'm going on mute because she clicks down the hallway. So I feel, part of what you said was about having that relationship already. So I almost went, I'm going to answer you, but I almost wonder if coming back, part of what the challenge is not how do we get the client to believe in us? How do we build the relationship? Like, how do we start that? So for me, it's almost like layers back, because that person believed in you and knew in you, and then you had that connection. So I almost wonder if part of this is that first interaction to build the trust, to have them understand what you do and can deliver, so that then you can get there. So it's kind of coming back to answer your question. It is almost that. So we've done a lot of different trainings. Sometimes it's word of mouth. So somebody will, so it's retail companies, it's banks, it's startups, it's anything where oftentimes somebody, financial sector, I don't know if I said that right, people have said, my friend who's a CEO of a whatever hired you, and they had a really good time and learned things. Sometimes people have understood improv or the values of some kind of theater-based training or something like that from being other places. So like your contact, they did something in the US or whatever, and then they reach out to us, and it's a mixture of online or in person. And they come because of the goals or values that they want to get across, and they want to have fun, right? So they don't just want PowerPoints and sitting in seats. And so sometimes they really know what it is that they want. Did I answer your question, or just take space?
No, again, it's sort of triggered another thought. Because, and again, it's just sort of refining the challenge, which is fine for the collective build idea. Sometimes you have to reframe what it is that you're trying to answer, right? Mm-hmm. But just thinking that, is it okay if I share a link in the chat?
Yeah. And also, I want to invite anyone else who's watching. I saw that James was commenting. James, if you want to come up on stage, or Stefan or Trinu, if you want to come up on stage and speak to us about how we're going to go through the collective build here, we're all going to do this together. Please type in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. James, didn't catch the specifics. Sure. The point of the challenge for me being, how do you get into a new client? So if we're talking about, let's just say corporate improv as an example, how do we get the new client? How do we initiate that relationship and have them understand the value of improv? So I can network my face off, but I want them to hire me for improv because they want to have us there. Hi, Trinu. Good morning to you. Hi, Estonia. All right, Sam.
I think somebody had a hand raised, but I don't really know this platform, so I think it might have gone away. Yeah, so refining the challenge a little bit further, for me, what you said there really hit the nail on the head. It's about how do you demonstrate the value of improv? Because some of my, I would say, more awkward stumbles around this concept has, it's not landed perfectly. So either, they think it's too lighthearted, or they want, people will want when it's team building, or, something like that. Whereas I see a real value in terms of unlocking, say there's an issue within a team, just getting them completely doing something different. And the nature of improv, it's not connected to their day-to-day, mirror the issues that they'd have in a team in their improv, or some of the things that would come up in conversations or ideas. That's just as valuable as the connection, right? So yeah, if you want to do it as part of the team building thing, that's not really what we do, but that's fine. However, trust us with giving us an hour, and we bring in someone like Lauren and just get people's energy in a different place, get them thinking about something different. That's just as valuable. But it's really hard to convey that, right? That's where I find the issue to be. Hi, James.
James, I'd love to know if you have challenges that you want to bring to the floor. So I shared something that Sam and I have talked about before, but I want to know if you have anything that you want to throw down.
Sure. Kids say One thing that's for a long time been a kind of challenge has been like telling a story and kind of not losing the chain of thought when I'm telling it. And even if I practice alone, I can like become self-conscious and like start thinking about other things and, oh, this isn't that important.
Sorry, I did catch that. I was trying to find something just as you were saying. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's a really interesting challenge. I'm sure Lauren has some thoughts on it that she'd love to share. But
Yeah.
just if you don't mind if I sort of build first.
Mm-hmm.
It's an art form, right? And it's almost a cliche to say that, but there's people that maybe that you go for a drink with or that you have around for dinner, and you just know some of them are great storytellers, and some people really struggle or lose track or take 10 minutes when they could take 2 minutes, and that's it's all fine. But what we found, because storytelling is one of the sessions that we deliver, it's one of the tools that we share with clients. And what we find is that everybody's aware of good storytellers, but good storytellers normally know themselves that they're good storytellers, but they don't know why they're good. They don't know the science behind why they're particularly funny or why their stories are more memorable. And there's been lots of research done on it. And you can storytelling model or storytelling iceberg. That's what I was just trying to find. If you Google that, Lauren, do you know this specifically as well? Or yeah, so there's a really good model to follow. And if you just type in,
what do you call the model? Storytelling iceberg? Storytelling?
If you type in storytelling iceberg or storytelling model, basically it's one of these concepts that no one owns it because it's been around so long. It's just a concept. So obviously what people do is then they rebrand it in their own branding and call it something different, and then it's theirs. So there's hundreds of different versions of it, but they all sort of boil down to the same thing. So I'd suggest having a look at that. Off the top of my head, there are things like using vivid descriptors, anchoring is another term. So when you're telling a story, if you have little chapters within your story, or little, say, a word or a sentence that, okay, when I've got to this bit, now I need to ramp up my energy, or now I need to get to that bit. So you have anchors within a story. And yeah, there's lots more to it, but look it up. But the last thing I would say on it is, you mentioned when you practice yourself, practice with your friends and let them know that what you're doing is practicing telling a story, so they can give feedback. Oh, that bit was a bit dull, or why don't you try and say this instead of that word? I don't think there's much benefit to practicing storytelling on your own. I think just find someone each time, whether it's a friend, a partner, colleague, whatever. People don't mind. People like giving feedback. So asking for feedback is rarely turned down, I would say. Anyway, sorry, I'll pass to Lauren.
Toenails McGee's just all over the shop. Come here. So I want to know, James, when you're talking about storytelling, is this in a performative context? Is this like as a storyteller, or like for marketing, you want to tell a story?
Both. Actually, it's it's both, personal and marketing. Actually more personal, meeting people, I'd rather often ask what their passion is and kind of get into that. And maybe I'll relate to, I can kind of get fired up if I'm really passionate about something. Then I can maybe tell a story.
Yeah.
But often I'll leave it to the other person to tell the stories and ask questions and kind of bring out what the other person is about.
Yeah. Okay. I want to yes and Sam, and I'm also going to just share a thought that I just am marinating right now on. There's no point, as Sam said, in telling a story if there's no one there to listen. So I would say that if you are the listener of the stories, it's great to be a storyteller, but also we need an audience. So if you're happy being an audience, I think that's just as wonderful and important and okay. And if you like, there's a reason you need to be telling stories. I mean, of course, you're conveying information, or if it's for work or whatever makes you happy, great. But like, you don't have to be a a storyteller, like you can be the one who nods and supports and cheerleads, and I think there's value in that just as much.
Right.
To Sam's point about the story and how to be engaging, a couple of things I'm thinking about. So and we actually did a panel on storytelling at the very, very beginning of the summit. So you can go back and watch that with Carla McGovern and Joe Bill. Very interesting, I think. So the moderator was fantastic. So one of the things that we talked about was that it's more than just the words, right? We've talked about that during the summit a little bit. That the story is the language that you use, and it's also the way that you convey it. So sometimes for me, I do a couple of different things. Of course, like Sam said, of course I anchor throughout, right? So there's things. This session is hysterical.
So James, what's your context? You mentioned personal, but also professional as well. What sort of environment would you be storytelling in? What's your industry?
Well, I work helping out at a family business, so medical. So and sometimes you talk with other coworkers and stuff like that, or you meet new people. So it's kind of nice to kind of, if you're going to share something, to kind of do it in a convincing way.
Sure. Lauren, I should know the answer to this, given that he's my dad, but in my dad's session yesterday, did he talk about central messaging and
the pillar?
Michelle Obama? Yeah. Just thinking that might be relevant as well.
Yeah, totally. Okay, and so I'm going to say what I was going to say before this one causes trouble again. So the body beyond just the words, and also the pacing, the cadence of the story. I don't know. What is your native language, James?
Norwegian.
Yeah. You have a language which is not tonal, right? Like Chinese or some other languages. You can use the way you can change the sound, right? And it means different things.
Right. No.
No?
Well, it doesn't. No, the tonal doesn't make different meanings as in Chinese.
Right. Okay, yeah. Which means you can play with it. So like in English, we have the ability to go like, I'm so excited, or I'm so excited. And the words mean the same, but I'm sharing energy differently. But in Chinese, like you have to have a tone, right? So I think that means we're lucky in our languages that we can play and make the story more engaging by the way that we deliver it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I like to do is break the cadence of my story, so that if I'm constantly talking like this and I'm speaking around about the same kind of way and tone, then it feels a certain way. And then if I shift and I talk in a different kind of way, like you go, whoa, and you get pulled in. So for me, one of the things I like to do is shift that and pause and then suddenly get a little bit faster.
Yeah.
And then take a minute. Stuff like that. So just playing around with it. And I think that's like so easy. And it's also a mechanism to give you a break to think. So one of the things you said was that you get a little lost sometimes, like telling your story and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot where I was going.
Yeah.
I think it gives you a second. If you are playing with that, you can take a sec. It feels dramatic. And maybe you're able to collect your thoughts and go like, where was I going? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll put that on the table.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I just got the idea why you said that. Yeah, because pauses, you can use the pauses. I guess what I've been doing often is just, talk and kind of without stopping. But you could use the pauses just to, okay, what's the next thing that happened?
Yeah.
And while you also told you to kind of vary the tonal or the emotions, you can like use your body posture. Like, what really happened?
Yeah.
So I think Lauren's frozen again. Oh no, you're back. I ran a session on Wednesday for a charity. I'll give them a shout out, actually, the Amber Foundation. They work with ethnic minority women here in Hong Kong, trying to get them career ready. So things like communication and interview skills, we've been working with them on. And there's a question that we asked in the session, which was, the model's called the 3 Vs. So the 3 Vs are visual, visual, vocal, and verbal. and I asked them, what do you think is the most important when you're communicating with someone? And it's a leading question because you want them to say, oh, it's verbal, it's what you say, but that's the least important. And if I remember off the top of my head the percentages, when creating like a first impression or something like that, it's 55% visual, 38% vocal, and only 7% verbal. So that tone, that intonation, what
Say
Lauren's
those percentages again, Sam. I want them in the chat. Say that again.
55% visual, 38% vocal, and 7% verbal. I'm really hoping that adds up to 100, but I'm pretty sure
It does now. It's the new 100.
And yeah, and now more than ever, and so this is sort of linked to storytelling, but I guess it's a wider thing about communication generally, is how do we present ourselves visually? So something I can notice from our conversation with the three of us on the camera, we've all been quite lent in, right? We're engaged in the conversation, we're taking part of it. And I always think of that one because I've been told in the past that I've got quite a relaxed approach when facilitating workshops. So I'm quite calm, whereas lots of people are normally, high energy, adrenaline running. So I've been told to watch my posture and how am I presenting myself? Because if I was sat down leading a group, I'd quite likely to be leant back, trying to be relaxed and opening, but people would say that it came across as being disengaged or a little bit disinterested, which wasn't the case at all. So now I sort of consciously almost act like I'm more adrenalized than I actually am, because that's what people like, that's what they expect and feel comfortable with. And so another element, visual, with the way that the world is how we set up, how are our cameras, what backgrounds do we have? Is it a virtual background? Is it that you've slightly moved some books around to make it look like you're an academic, which everybody seemed to do when they started using Zoom? Or is it neutral, like Lauren's? Is it pretty clean so that people can be engaged with you and it's not messy and full of clutter behind, right? So that was a little bit of a tangent, but I just thought I'd share the 3 Vs.
That I was literally just trying to turn on a virtual background to exemplify what it is that you were talking about. And I just wonder if it's going to work. It might not like me, but yeah, I've had so many conversations about this. I think this speaks to both of the challenges that we've talked about now, storytelling and also client engagement and relationship building. Because we live in the Zoomiverse, sorry, Remo, many people have said this different ways and more articulately than I. You are a producer, I've heard someone say, so you're not just able to use the tactile and the body, because I don't have legs now, right? I'm only arms and a partial torso and head to you, and I'm 2D, not 3. So I lose some of what would normally enroll you and get you engaged with me, because I have to produce myself. I have to be aware of me, Lauren, my message, what I'm saying, and the fact that I'm half out of the camera or whatever. So you have to be aware, we're all Netflixers at the same time. I have to mute when the dog goes bananas. So how do you, engage a client and sell them and tell an engaging story, keep someone 2D? I don't know what else James is seeing, if he's getting emails right now or what's going on behind his camera. So I think that there's a piece of this which is around being cognizant of the fact that I only control what I'm sending out, and making it so engaging that, as Sam said, I'm pulling you in, and this is a whole other art. It's not sitting at lunch and doing a sales or a story. I did not help co-create. I just added gray challenge. I'm sorry.
No, it's interesting. For example, so we work with about 25 associates, so they deliver programs on behalf of Actualize, and obviously with everything being virtual, I've actually requested that when other people work with us, they don't have the sort of 2-monitor thing, which people seem to quite like, because at least half the time you're looking away from the camera. So people will consciously realize why it's happening, but subconsciously they'll feel like you're not paying attention, you're less engaged. So yeah, no, it's really really makes a difference, definitely. Lauren, do you have a challenge that we can sort of, we'll do a third one?
Yes, I literally have a million. And also, I want to know from the chat, because there's a couple people who are here are quiet. There are creepers for sure. So I want to know if any of the creepers have challenges. You can type it in the chat. So I want to know if Trina or Siddharth or Rebecca have anything. And I just want to clarify as well, if people want to take this away, Sam, so we're a small group, which I kind of love. It's really intimate and beautiful. But if people want to take away co-creation and do this themselves, just like, how do they kick this off and do this outside of today? And then I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Lauren?
Sorry, James.
Oh, yeah.
Lauren, could I just ask you about your first challenge? Because I was just curious what you actually do to, if you have a potential client, how do you actually get them to understand or make the choice that improv is, or because you do workshops like 1-2 days, how many days? Or
it's very
hours? Or?
Yeah, I can do a couple hours, or they can be a series, or it's very dependent.
So it's
yeah.
different packages. Okay, and how do you actually, what are the challenges, or how do you actually convey that? Okay, how do they make the choice that, oh yeah, we'll try one of your packages or products?
Yeah. So a lot of the time, the first conversation that I have when someone has said that they think that they want to do training is that I ask what it is that they want to get out of it. And what fascinates me is that they oftentimes kind of don't know. So I give them the opportunity to say, do you have values? Do you have certain messaging? Are we pulling together all of the executives for an annual 3-day summit, and you're covering a certain number of things, and then I slot into that. And I don't know, maybe I should change my message, but I keep thinking, because some clients do, I keep thinking they're all going to go, oh yeah, we really want to focus on this. And what happens is they often don't know. They've come knocking on the door and they go, what could we work on? And I say, oh, okay, we could work on this list. So one of the first things I do is ask what it is that they need, give them the opportunity to say, and then I talk about the things that we could work on. And I try to contextualize the things that we could work on in their business or the selection of people. So I ask who's going to be there, what their backgrounds are, what their language skills are. And then I take from my list and I give them options of what we could work on based upon who they are and either the values they shared or the goals they shared or what I think they're trying to do. And then I kind of like throw spaghetti on the wall and see if it sticks.
And do you ever, because I just came to think about that, like at least in Norway, a lot of the businesses, I mean, they have to use Google AdWords, and often they do it because everyone else is doing it. So I mean, like that's about the only way, because one company starts doing it and then they get business, and then others have to do it too. So I just want, so you kind of look at what are the competition, what kind of products are they using? Do you ever use it in your marketing, that kind of those who has to make the decisions, that they kind of, these companies are doing your workshops, so maybe they're having great benefits. I mean, do you like show that in the marketing from the get-go, what results you've gotten, or do you have to like just explain them and kind of what it is all about? Or do you have a way of marketing so they know, oh, everyone else is using your services, so we have to do so we don't miss out?
Yeah, I haven't tried to make them feel like jealous people getting into a nightclub, but I love that, and I think that we should. So we do, like, we'll have on our website, or we'll talk about different companies. Oftentimes I don't mention different companies.
Okay.
Only because I'm so silly, and I think that like it shouldn't matter. So it's just kind of my own values decision. I feel like if I tell them that we did something with Adidas, like that might sound great, but I don't know. But I would love to, because it's my challenge, right? So I'd love to take feedback, and like maybe I should name drop more.
Well, because decisions are often made of, okay, how do the others do things? What services do they use? Like I often interested in what kind of switchboard operation do they use? I mean, what kind of applications do they use? Kind of. So it's always good to know. And and most businesses, I feel, even I do improv, I feel that in businesses that I've been in, that I don't know, how can improv work at a workplace? Because I haven't seen it done. It's fun to do, and I understand, but it's often in a business, you don't have much time for stuff, because you might be in business where you have to do things and just to take care of everyday stuff that happens.
Mhm.
So you don't see kind of, why should we spend a lot of time on this? But if you understand, oh, a lot of people are doing it and builds better teamwork and make happier employees, you know.
Mhm. I'm thinking of 9 things and I want to come back to them, but before I
Okay.
move on, can I ask, but on this exact point, can I ask Sam, do you name drop? I mean, and I don't mean to sort of take it and dumb it down, but do you feel that it's helpful in landing clients and having those discussions saying, hey, we work with your competitors, or hey, we work with people who you think are cool? Is that part of the conversation for you?
Yes, it happens a lot. So, and I can use you as an example that I mentioned earlier. So by being able to do that PayPal gig, it wasn't the world's biggest project, obviously, but what it did mean is that when we suggested using improv with HSBC, we said, oh, we did it with PayPal, they loved it. That sort of credibility, or it sort of validates that it's still a risk for them because they haven't done it before, but oh, another reputable business did it and enjoyed it. So for sure, I think it makes a difference. What I don't like, and I should check my website because I don't know if we do it or not, because I'm not in charge of it, but I don't really like when it's just we've worked with and then a bunch of different clients without any context. So I, for example, looked at my old business, or I was an employee rather than my business, and there were clients on there that I know that they've not worked with in over 10 years. And it was just a small part of that business that they worked with, but they put out, worked with this multinational. So I tend to not believe them that much. But if you can use, I like your term, name dropping, but doing it when you're in discussions, in conversations, I think it just helps build credibility. So I'm being more specific about how do I get a certain thing into a workshop. But I think that's true just when you're talking to clients. Oh, we've worked with people, so we know your industry, we understand you. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lauren, but I would say in terms of our businesses, it's similar in as much as it's very rare for us, probably never going to happen, that somebody's just going to Google learning and development in Hong Kong or Asia or whatever and find our website and agree to work with us just from that. So I don't worry too much about our website, because I think the way that we win most work is through consultative selling. So a bit like you were saying, Lauren, we like to sort of have initial conversations with potential clients. Not usually, I've put a link into this chat with our handbook, which is, I know you've seen it, Lauren, but it's just a page on all the different things that we do. And a client or a prospective client will say, oh, we're really interested in culture change. And we'll go in and talk to them about that. But we're asking questions. We're being curious. We're not just saying, okay, we'll get our culture change program. We're saying, what, tell us more about it. What's the benefit of doing training? What would happen if you don't develop your people? Those sorts of questions. So what you end up doing, or, how much will it cost your business if your people aren't happy, or if they're not improving on their sales, or whatever it is? How many deals are you losing by not negotiating better? Things like that. What you're doing is getting them to give you the answers, which in turn makes it really difficult for them to say no, because they've told you what they want, and you're just playing it back to them. So we quite often will go to those meetings, have those conversations, and then send a report back. But we will have one person on the call that's literally just writing down the buzzwords that they notice. And in every report, those buzzwords are just played back to them. Yeah, hopefully that was helpful.
Okay, so So many interesting things. I love what you said about the questioning to the client of what happens if you do or don't do this. I feel like there's so much in that, because instead of just doing a sales pitch, you're creating a conversation, and with that back and forth, you're also asking them to do thinking. So I often say in improv training that I don't ask, or I teach people to not ask questions, because you're giving work. And there's a whole thing about this for me. And because of that, I love that in this context. I'm giving you thinking to do. I've just asked you to do a job for me. So I've said, James, if you don't do this training that we're thinking about, if you don't spend, $200, whatever it is, to go do a training with your leaders on Tuesday, what are the ramifications? And then I've given you the job and I've gone, here, tell me. And I love that, because it forces you to go through a thinking process, and then you get to make a valuable decision, rather than, as Sam said, me just going like, hey, you should really get blue cups because blue cups are really great, and cups hold things, and then you're like listening and going, yeah, buzzword, cups, water, okay, great. So I like that this engages a thinking. Also, I just saw the time. This is hysterical. This session is not what I thought it was going to be. I've really, really enjoyed this. I hope you lurkers watching and you here have. Sam, I want to know, if we're going to walk away from this, do we have any top tips, suggestions, things we need to know, either for James's storytelling context, my example about getting into a corporate for improv, or for co-creation?
Yeah, so we sort of did it, and you're right, it was a bit of a different session than what I was expecting as well, but also really enjoyed it. But just to sort of clarify the collective build concept then, when you're trying to unlock an idea or find a solution to a challenge, the more brains you get involved, at least at first, the better. So it's the opposite of the sort of too many cooks thing. Get as much information, as much data, as many different perspectives as possible, but try and do it collectively. So the idea is that everybody builds on each other's ideas. So a bit like we've done here, I've said something, Lauren, you've built on it, James has added to it, and it evolves and it might change, but you're sort of taking what's been said previously and building on it. We actually use these post-its quite often to do in our teams or in workshops. And we get people to write their idea or their challenge, and then in a circle, let's say there's 5 people, you just write it, and the next person just adds a line, and then the next person adds the third line, and so it becomes this sort of collectively agreed upon solution, because nobody's rejected anything. So you might have 5 people, 5 challenges, and you will just pass it round, and then it comes back to you, and you go, oh, thanks for the insights. So that's how we do it in person. Virtually, you can do it in the chat or just have a chat like we did. But yeah, just thought I'd sort of name the process.
Cool. Okay, so I want to give a couple of reference points for anyone who's here watching or who will watch this back. There's something called the Co-Creation School, which is out of Amsterdam, she said, not really sure. And they had some folks join us. We had a panel on service design the other night, whatever day time that was, and Anna Kira Beck joined us from Slovenia. She's part of the Co-Creation School, and they do free online sessions every month, I think on the 10th of the month and the 18th of the month or something like that, and they do different time zones so that Europe can join and that Asia and Africa and stuff can join. So I encourage people to go to that. It's really lovely, and look up co-creation. There was also a session with Samuel, who joined us the other day talking about this, and we went through some different thinking methodology, and I really, really like the post-it idea and passing it around. And this to me is so referential of improv and doing a story together, either word at a time or sentence at a time. So I love that. And I want to lastly say that Actualize, as I mentioned, is a company that is not just doing learning work here in Hong Kong, but also globally, and that's both online and in person. So I think that if people want to go check that out, and Sam didn't really, we kind of just like took this from you and made this a chat. I'm so sorry, Sam. We didn't really get to pass around, but I encourage everyone to go both try that and to get in touch. So what we're going to do now is that we're going to go back to the floor plan, and then after that, there's a show in 14 minutes. We have a show. It's called Creo Stories Where I Came From. This one is a story from Edward Duavy out of Brazil, and he is someone who has roots that have been erased. He doesn't have access to his history because of slavery and the slave trade, and so he's improvising and creating his own history. And in Portuguese, which this will be in Portuguese and English, the word history and the word story mean the same thing. So James, I encourage you to watch this. This is going to be something where he writes history with a story. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, James, for your participation, and the creepers in the chat, and the people typing in hi Trinu, hi Estonia, good morning. Thank you all. And Sam, anything final from you?
No, just thank you for putting this together. I've been able to sort of drop in and out of different parts. It's really interesting. So
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Really appreciate your time and your energy, and we will see you in a couple minutes for the next session. Bye.